Well, let's talk about this. Betsy Woodruff is a politics reporter for the Daily Beast. She joins us now from Washington. Betsy, thanks for being with us. The reason we're also curious about Donald Trump's immigration policy is it's the cornerstone and has been of his campaign and presidential run. How important is tomorrow and the specifics about this deportation force that he was referencing weeks ago and is now apparently stepping away from?
You know, I think it's going to be tough to overstate the significance of his event tomorrow. I believe it's in the same venue where he had his very first major rally as a presidential campaign back last summer. The first indicator that Trump was going to be competitive in the primary were the lines that stretched around blocks in Phoenix. He's going back to that place tomorrow, and that's where he's going to be sort of revisiting this immigration question. Now, that said, the logistics of the deportation force that he's mentioned and that hasn't mentioned as much are certainly interesting and really important. But the reality is that Trump wouldn't necessarily have to create a whole new branch of government in order to change drastically the way immigration enforcement works in the United States. Under President Obama, we've already seen a significant number of deportations. Particularly last December, there was an uptick in raids on the homes of families living here without documentation. It's certainly plausible that Trump could continue and dramatically build on that legacy without using something that he necessarily would dub a deportation force. So it's important to read between the lines and to remember that the folks that surround him, the advisors he have, are much more predictive as far as what his policy would look like than anything he's saying on the stump.
Betsy, it's been interesting seeing him walk this fine line, but you look at the polling. Hillary Clinton has done really, really well, but recently there's an NBC poll that actually shows Trump is down just 4 points in a four-way race, cutting into Clinton's lead. What do you make of these new numbers?
You know, part of the reason these numbers look so differently than they did a few weeks ago is that pollsters are starting to look at a four-way race rather than a two-way race. When many voters see that they're going to be able to vote for folks like Gary Johnson or Jill Stein in November, they say, hey, maybe I don't like Hillary or Trump. Now, part of the reason also that Trump is shrinking the gap with Hillary Clinton is that he's doing comparatively well with independent voters, not just national polls like NBC's, but also in some polls of swing states. For instance, Emerson College polled Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio, found that Hillary and Trump are tied in Ohio, that Hillary only leads by 3 points in Pennsylvania. She theoretically would expect her to lead by a lot more, and that Trump's only down by 5 points in Michigan. A big part of the reason for that is that independents seem to be moving at least slightly in his direction. If Hillary wants to keep the momentum that she got after the DNC, she's going to have to focus really hard on getting those independents to move back more squarely into her camp.
And the fact is, Betsy, it's possible for Trump possibly to turn this around and to make progress in the polls if he can stay on message and do something, as you say, that attracts independents and moderate Republicans. However, there continues to be these unwanted controversies on the sidelines. The latest one involves this tweet from a pastor showing Hillary Clinton in blackface. Does the Trump campaign deserve blame for that slip-up and getting off message?
I think you can certainly make the case that campaign cultures start at the top. Look, Trump as a candidate himself has rarely been on message for more than a week at a time. It's completely unsurprising that one of his top surrogates, who actually opened one of the nights of the RNC in a very partisan prayer, that he would tweet something that's this inflammatory and offensive. The Trump campaign, Trump staffers have, over the course of this entire candidacy, been tweeting out, spreading social media messages that are conspiratorial or false or deeply troubling. That said, of course, the reality is that, you know, as we just talked about, the polls are getting closer for Trump. And it's certainly conceivable that if he manages to get everybody in line, if he manages to stop tweeting things that are perplexing or inflammatory, and if his surrogates also fall in line, that we could see those numbers get even closer than they are. I mean, an NBC calculation that I think came out this morning found that Hillary Clinton has outspent Trump on ads about 10-1. Yeah. And the race is still as close as it is. So it's far from over.
Pretty significant. Certainly not far from over. The national security button that the Trump campaign keeps pushing with Hillary Clinton for saying that she's careless with her emails and handling of intelligence. And now this Anthony Weiner scandal, Trump putting out a statement questioning Hillary Clinton's judgment and basically implying that the marriage that Huma Abedin had with Weiner may have put the country's national security at risk. I mean, do voters really buy that?
I think it's very doubtful that voters are going to say, well, I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton, but it seems like Weiner might have leaked national security secrets, so now I won't. I think what's more likely is Trump just enjoys bashing Anthony Weiner. If you go through his Twitter feed, ever since the first days of that scandal back, I believe it was 2011, Trump has just relished this story. He enjoys it so much. He made a little video from in his office, right, all the way back years ago when Weiner first resigned from Congress, saying that Weiner was a dangerous sex pervert. So the fact that Trump has found a kind of creative, if evidence-free way of suggesting that Weiner was somehow a national security threat just means that it gives him an excuse to talk about one of his favorite topics. That said, of course, lots of voters are not huge Anthony Weiner fans. He hasn't exactly covered himself in glory, so he's not doing the campaign any favors. And the fact that he and Huma have separated might make it easier for Clinton to kind of distance herself from that entire foo-for-ah.
Okay, Betsy Woodruff. Thank you, Betsy.
Sure thing.